Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. Now I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Today, we get to crack into a little Netflix action, baby. The newest of the Netflix action movies. There's been a nice string of them in the last year. Dropped yesterday, and I have been excited for this movie. The way I get excited, like when I hear Keanu Reeves is doing another John Wick, because Charlize Theron is in the lead, and she's an immortal mercenary. Take my money right now. And I gotta say, of this run of Netflix action movies, this I think is by far my favorite. Even though I wanted a little bit more action than we got, but the action we do get is spectacular. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, man? Take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler free into the Old Guard. Now, for those unfamiliar, much like myself, with the Old Guard, this is based off of a graphic novel by the same name. And follows a group of immortal mercenaries. This group of mercenaries, are led by Charlize Theron's character Andy, and have been around for centuries, man. And anywhere they pop up and they do things, not right away, but eventually, the world reaps the benefits of the good that they do. Just a great concept, and taking that, you could go in so many different directions. And while the movie does not go the way I think it's gonna go, they tease some things up that I was like, ooh, is this where we're headed? Like, we could have a really big, awesome finale on our hands. Doesn't quite go where I thought it was gonna go, but where it does go, I thought was super interesting. And the thing I liked the most about this movie, the characters, man, specifically Andy, and new immortal Niall, who is played by Kiki Lane. Really, really good. And the character development for those two characters, I thought was the best of the main group. There are three other immortals. Matthias Schoenaerts plays Booker. Marwan Kanzari, aka Sexy Jafar, plays Joe, and Luca Marinelli plays Nikki. And together, this group, we get a little bit of all their stories. Everybody gets a little. And what's nice is it's never bombarded at you. They don't throw a ton, but in the course of things that are going on, you'll get a crumb here, or a crumb over here, or here's a taste of this. And when you piece all the little tidbits together that they give you throughout the movie, these characters and this group in particular are really complex. The way they think about the idea of immortality here, like what happens to one of them if they get caught, say, or if somehow one of them could be injured. They die and they come back. So they do get hurt, and how you play with that and use that to your advantage in the storytelling, I thought was really, really solid stuff, and it made this group interesting. And then, of course, when your lead is someone like Charlize Theron, you want her to be the most interesting, and far and away she is. She's the oldest of all of the mercenaries, and she is the most complex. The way her story arc goes, I was just like, that's cool, man. And all the credit goes to Greg Rucka there, who wrote the screenplay and is also our writer of the graphic novel. We've been seeing him try to kind of jump over from comics, and this, boom, seems to be the big break where I was like, yes, Greg Rucka, I like this story so much. I want to go check out the graphic novel. If you've read the graphic novel and seen the movie, let me know how close the movie is to what Rucka did in the comics. I'd have to imagine it would be close, or at least close enough in a sense where it makes sense in the story that they're telling. But I would love to know how accurate it is, and if it's a new story or if it's setting up something that came out of the comics. All that stuff I would love to know. I gotta go try to find the comic. But I thought Greg Rucka did a phenomenal job. Now, Gina Prince Bythewood is the director here. I mentioned her in my trailer reaction. The only thing I really knew her from was Love and Basketball. And then from an action standpoint, she did one episode of Cloak and Dagger. Now, before we get to the action, because we will get to the action, I think Prince Bythewood does a really nice job here. Definitely gets really good performances out of every single person who is a main actor with lines. All of our mercenaries are really good. Chiwetel Ejiofor, who has a really small role but could have a bigger role in the future, he's really solid. Harry Melling, who plays the villain, thought he did a great job. Everybody's bringing it. There's no weak link in the acting, and as much as that falls on the actors, it also falls on the director to get the best and the things that you need out of it. And then from the structure of the movie, pacing I thought was really, really well. You don't really have any kind of too big of a dip down of like nothing going on or things that aren't interesting. She keeps the movie moving, and when the action hits, it hits really well. My problem is that it hits well and fast. And if you're going to do really good action in quick bursts, I need a lot of it throughout the movie. And there's probably, let's see, we get like the first big fight sequence, then there's one in a smaller area. There's like 4 or 5 sequences of action in the movie, and they're all really stellar. And all the credit in the world goes to fight coordinator Daniel Hernandez there. We'll talk about him in a minute. But my thing, just knowing that like Prince Bythewood hasn't really done action before, it felt like it was created for like television. I think the quality of the action is movie grade. And it looks movie grade. The camera work and the cinematography are really nice for all the action set pieces that they're doing, and then just throughout the movie in general. But it did feel like it was someone doing action who hasn't done a lot of it. And being that she's only done TV action, it kind of felt small the way TV action does. You know, you only have a half hour or an hour to tell a story in those situations. So, you know, you got to get in and out, you know, because otherwise you're going to eat up the whole episode. And that's what this action kind of feels like. It feels like you're trying to get in and get out fast. I would have preferred the action to extend out a minute or two longer in each scenario. But with that being said, everything you get in this movie I thought was really, really good. So, you know, good on you, Gina Prince Bythewood. I think you deliver a really more interesting movie than I was expecting. I was expecting a movie that might have a lot of action. It doesn't. It's got a lot of story. It's got a lot of development. And it just stays interesting and moves the whole time. So she was fantastic. Daniel Hernandez, huge credit to him, because the fight coordination in this movie is absolutely bonkers. Now, this is another guy that, you know, comes out of that, you know, John Wick group. You know, you had David Leitch, who did Atomic Blonde, the first John Wick, and Deadpool 2. Chad Stahelski, uncredited co-director on John Wick, and then has done the last 2 of them. And Daniel Hernandez also was working on stunts back with John Wick and those guys, and he's gone out to do stuff for Endgame and Infinity War with fight coordination, Ragnarok, Birds of Prey. You know, he came in for the second unit with Stahelski. The guys that are coming out of this group that have kind of spawned off from David Leitch, wow, dude, like the things Hernandez does from a fight choreographing standpoint are awesome, man. They're inventive. They're really cool. When Charlize gets her like big circular axe thing, like immediately, like it's so fast, you're like, oh, that's awesome. She like fights with her guns. Like she doesn't just shoot people. She like is punching and finishing people. Where I was like, ooh, I've never seen that. There's a shot with like a shotgun where a dude gets like, he hits a dude, it drops, and then he blows another guy's head off, and my head went, you know, with the villain's head who exploded. I thought what Hernandez did was amazing. The action in this movie is top notch. I just wanted more of it because it's so good. But believe me, I'm going to be keeping an eye on Daniel Hernandez, because if he starts to cross over into wanting to direct in things, I'm going to be very interested, and you can take my money right now, because what he does here from an action standpoint, awesome. Now, all of this doesn't work unless you got a really good, you know, cast around all of the talent of the writing and the directing and the fight choreography. And the cast here is rock solid. Charlize Theron, I don't even need to say anything to you. She's been great in action even before Atomic Blonde, but like, I love her, obviously, in Mad Max Fury Road. But Atomic Blonde, that was the level up, man. She showed you that she could do all this intense, intricate fight choreography, and it pays. Every time she's on screen doing the action, you know it's her. And it makes it better, because you're like, oh man, that's awesome. Look at the cool moves they do. And everything she does in the movie is cool. Like there are no like simple action movements that she has. Everything is intricate and awesome, and it pops. And then just from an acting standpoint, I mean, Charlize is one of the best in the business, and I love her as Andy here, man. Like I said, I think she's really complex. She's got lots of layers to her, and there are a lot of internal emotional things going on in her inside with her that you could tell. Like if it was a comic, there'd probably be a lot of you know, what would be voiceover in a movie, but it's the internal monologue. She expresses all of it through her facial actions, and you understand everything that's going on with her, even when she's not saying anything. And that's just Charlize being amazing. And she's just absolutely flat out fantastic in this movie. I love the arc she gets. I love the twist with her character and where that ends up. And if we go forward with more of these movies, I am so here for it. Next to her is newest, immortal Kiki Lane's character Niall, former Marine, and I think she's a Marine. But she's in the military. She gets killed and she comes back, and then that's how, spoilers, even though we know that's what's going to happen. And then Charlize kind of finds her, and I was really really impressed with Kiki Lane. I loved her in If Beale Street Could Talk. And it's really the only thing I'm real familiar with her from. Here, though, she grows on you. Like, she comes into the movie, and you're like, okay, I like this. Where we go? Let's see where we go. And by the end of the movie, you're like, yo, go get him, Niall. Like, she can hold her own, and she gets a couple different stretches with Charlize on screen. One in a plane, that whole sequence, that's the minute you're like, okay, not Niall. I like Niall. Kiki Lane, she can hang. Let's go. And then toward the end of the movie, in the third act, their sequences together are just awesome. I really thought Kiki Lane popped too. And again, was a character that I wanted to learn more about. I wanted to get into, but the tidbits they give you allow you to figure out her whole story. And that's the stuff that's brilliant. When you're doing an action movie, like I've said over and over again with John Wick, you give me that story right up front, make me care about the character, understand what his motivations are, and then go. This doesn't take that approach. This takes the normal movie approach of throughout the whole movie we're getting things, but it's, here's what you need to know. Now you understand this character. Cool, let's go. Like, if we make more movies, I don't need a ton more backstory on these characters. You can tell me backstories about them or different elements of them, but now, from here on out, you can just run with these characters, and that was really awesome. So I loved Kiki Lane. And then you got your other three, immortals. Matthias Schoenaerts, who plays Booker, Luca Marinelli, who plays Nicky, and Marwan Kenzari, who plays Booker. All really, really good, man. They each bring different elements. They're all a little bit different. And the relationships and the interactions between them are really awesome. Joe and Nicky do a lot of things together. So, Kenzari and Marinelli, very, very good on-screen chemistry. And the moments that you get with the two of them, thoroughly enjoyable. And then, Booker, also, good. Like, this is like the group of guys where you got just enough of them where you're like, rock solid, man. Like, Booker's good, and his story also has an interesting play in it as well. And they all do a fine job. But this one is really about Charlize and Kiki Lane. And the same can be said with Chiwetel Ejiofor. Kind of a smaller role for him. He pops in and out. But again, what his arc does and sets up going forward, I'm like, yes, that's what I want to see Chiwetel Ejiofor do. He's really good at doing that stuff. And for when he's on screen, he's rock solid. Now, the other surprise for me was Harry Melling, who plays Merrick. He's kind of our main antagonist. He's a pharmaceutical guy and is trying to figure out, how to, combat disease and extending life. So obviously very interested in immortal mercenaries. But the thing that's crazy, and I didn't even put it together, I had to look at the IMDb. Harry Melling ain't a nobody. I was like, who is this Harry Melling guy? Well, how about he's Dudley Dursley from the Harry Potter series? He's Harry's cousin, the little, fat kid from that just picks on Harry all the time when they're kids. He's all grown up, and looks completely different. He's lost a lot of weight, looks really good, and he plays this character spot on. You hate this dude from the get-go, and that is something that Harry Melling is really good at, because you hate him in those Harry Potter movies too. But I thought he did a good job. The idea and what they're going after with his character I thought was really interesting. It probably could have been fleshed out a little bit better than it was, but for what his role was, I thought he did a good job. Now, outside of not having enough action, the only other negative to this movie is it feels like a really good setup movie, right? Like, it's a solid, like I said, I think it's a rock solid movie all the way around. But it definitely could have been better, and it definitely could have been a lot worse. But at the end of the day, this feels like a movie that is setting up another movie. And there's no guarantee when you play that card that you get that second movie. Atomic Blonde did not play that card. It was a straightforward one movie, like, here you go. But you could see how that becomes a franchise, and you wanted more of it. We still haven't got one. This one does a legitimate setup for where we go forward. And I hope we get to see it, man, because, like I said, it's a fun movie. The action is I just thought it was so creative the way they used guns and the different things that they fight with. The hand-to-hand work is great, and the story, like I said, is just rock solid. So if you're looking for a rock solid action movie that's going to give you action that pops and makes you go ooh ah, and also gives you story that you care about and you're interested in, and you want to see where it goes, boom, The Old Guard is the movie for you, man. I loved this thing, and if they go forward and they can dial that, action up a little bit more, you're going to have another franchise that I think people will be really, really big fans of. So there you go, man. Those are all the Seaman's non-spoiler thoughts on The Old Guard. Rock solid flick, baby. If you like action, you like Charlize Theron, you're going to love you some Old Guard. So make sure you check it out. If you haven't, that's all I got to say. Now it's your turn. If you flipped on The Old Guard last night or today, and have had a chance to watch it, what do you think? Where does it land in the Netflix, action movie scale? Is it the best of this group, that I mentioned, Triple Frontier, Six Underground, Extraction, and now The Old Guard? Where does it land in those movies if you watched all those? What was the thing that you liked the best? Which action sequence was your favorite? For me, it's probably the first sequence, because Charlize is awesome. You really get some, moments. And then stuff at the end is pretty solid, too. But anything that you liked or disliked about The Old Guard, and if you've read the book and watched the movie, let me know what you're thinking down below. If you haven't watched the movie, has Seaman enticed you? I hope so, man. I try not to lead you guys astray. This is one I think that's definitely worth your time. 2 hours well spent right here. So anything you're thinking, down below in the comments section. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the old Seaman, and you want to show a little love, support for the Cinema Sit Down, you haven't yet, jump over there, man. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the Seaman Cinema Sit Down, I'm the Seaman. I'm signing off, baby. Peace. Well, you guys are still here. You must be looking for some more content. Well, don't worry. Seaman's got you covered, man. You got videos like this guy and this guy. And if you haven't yet, and you want to come check out all the Seaman goodies, join the Cinema Sit Down squad, man. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the little bell down below that, too, so you can get alerts every time I make new videos.